This episode is brought to you by Curriculum Rehab by us, the team here at Brave New Teaching. It is the first and only teacher PD of its kind, a course to help teachers like you by guiding you through creating your own personal framework for curriculum. You make it work for you, your students, and your unique situation because nobody else knows what the kiddos in your classroom need the way that you do. Curriculum Rehab takes all of the resources available to you, all of the lessons, the assessments, the activities, all of the texts, everything that could possibly be there for you, and it helps you organize what you actually need in order to attain your teaching objectives. These are the strategies that Amanda and myself have used in our own classrooms, have developed over very long years of teaching and figuring things out, combined together to create this framework and these strategies that we can guide you through. This course will give you the tools you need for a complete curriculum overhaul or to start from scratch. Wherever you are on that continuum, it does it all for you and with you on your timeline. So start today, do a little bit more in a couple of months, and then pick it up next summer. It's Teacher PD the way it should be on your own time. Head to curriculumrehab.com/course for more information, or just head to the show notes for this episode. We cannot wait to see you there. It's finally time to take control of what goes on in your own classroom and create the curriculum of your dreams. All right, let's get back into the show.
Well, hello and welcome back to Brave New Teaching. It's Amanda here, and I am here with an awesome interview. You guys know how much Marie and I love getting the chance to sit down and talk with authors about their work, especially authors with brand new works. And so today you are going to get to hear my conversation with Violet Duncan, and we just spoke about her brand new book. I actually got it before she did, believe it or not, from her publisher, which I don't actually know how that's even possible, but I received it and read through it, and she still doesn't even have her own copy of it. This is how brand new this novel is, and I am just so pumped for you guys to hear from her directly about the experience of writing it, about the stories that are being told, and how this could fit into your classroom. This is a middle grades novel. And I think that even if you are teaching at the high school level and you're kind of, maybe a little bit further up the complexity range, this is still a good read for you. I think that there are absolutely passages that could work as supplements to other texts that you're reading at the high school level, but middle grades teachers, this is really, really an important interview for you all to hear, and an even more important book for you guys to pick up and read. So let me tell you a little bit about Violet. She is a nationally and internationally known and toured author, educator, dancer, and storyteller. She will talk about this quite a bit in the episode, but a lot of her writing journey came out of her experience as a mom. A lot of what Violet noticed was that there were stories that were being told about Native people that were flat out wrong, misunderstood, misconstrued, and just not really representative of a modern Native family and their lifestyle. And so she started writing books for her kids when they were very, very little. And so that has continued throughout her life. And her children are now, right, much older. And so now she's finding herself writing for an older audience. And this novel is, reflective of that. So she is currently the Indigenous Cultural Advisor at the Tempe Center for the Arts. And she spends her time both in Arizona and Canada. She's all over the place, and her family's all over the place. They are traveling and performing and doing all kinds of cool things. I am so thrilled for you to listen to this interview, and we would really like to hear from you on the flip side, right? Once you've listened, we want to know, where do you see this novel fitting into your curriculum? And where do you see this novel really filling in a gap that was missing for you as an educator? We would love to hear that. So be sure to follow us on Instagram at Brave New Teaching. Send us an email, bravenewteaching@gmail.com, or head to our website and leave us a voice note. You can record a voice memo on your phone and email it to us. We really want to hear from you about just your reflections on this interview and your thoughts about using this novel moving forward. Without any further chit chat from me, I want to get us right into this episode so that you have all of your time dedicated to listening to the brilliant and wonderful Violet Duncan. Congratulations, Violet, on this brilliant novel. We are so thrilled to share it with our brave new teachers. All right, everyone, let's cue the music. You're listening to Brave New Teaching, and we are so much more than a podcast.
We give teachers the inspiration, support, and tools to challenge the status quo.
I'm Amanda, and I'm a former English teacher from Illinois.
And I'm Marie, and I'm a teacher from Southern California.
Join us at bravenewteaching.com to find out more about our courses, festivals, and get every episode's show notes.
We're so glad you're here. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone. I am here today, and we are ready to speak with Violet Duncan about her brand new book. And I am so happy you're here. Welcome to the podcast, Violet.
Thank you so much. Danse, everyone. I am coming in from Kehewin Cree Nation up in Alberta, Canada today.
We are so excited to talk to you, and a big shout out to our Canadian listeners. We have so many wonderful Canadian listeners that I don't think we've had Canadian authors on the podcast yet. You might be our first, but okay, it is your turn to introduce yourself. I gave a little brief intro about kind of like your author's bio information. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your story and your experience in becoming an author and all that good stuff?
Okay, so I'm Plains Cree and Taino Nation, and I fell in love and married my husband, Tony Duncan, and he is Apache. And so we reside in Arizona with our 4 children. Back in 2009, when I had my very first baby, we were so pumped and so excited, and we wanted to get all the books. Well, for me, it was all the books. For my husband, it was probably like all the onesies. I love dad onesies. But so I went looking in search. My favorite book at the time was called Mama's Milk. It was about all these animals breastfeeding. And my next voyage was of trying to find some good native lit that had some kid stuff and bright pictures. And I couldn't find anything. And I kept looking. And of course, we found some stuff that was maybe illustrated by a native person or maybe written but not illustrated. But I couldn't find anything really that was kind of striking home that looked like us, a modern native family, just living their lives, with a modern house. Everything was so back in the day, and it was always in regalia. And I was like, oh man, we really need some kids lit that has some modern native things that are happening and some imagery of like what our house looks like. Cause I had my mom living with us, and then my sister would live with us. So we had her auntie living with us, and we always had friends and families coming in and out, staying. Our house is like a revolving door, but there was no books that resembled what our families looked like. And so my very first book was actually self-published, and it was like an ode to my baby. It's called When We Dance. Side note, that book is actually going to be traditionally published in about 2 years. So it's going to come full circle.
Woo! Congratulations.
Yeah. And so I was so proud of it. That came out. And then we had my son. And then we went on another search for a father and son duo book that celebrates Indigenous fatherhood. And we couldn't find anything. And so for my son's honor, for his sake, I just made that book. And it's about him and dad hoop dancing in modern clothes, like basketball shorts in the backyard, just so we could see some good, positive relationships within father and son and doing something really cool like hoop dancing. And then another epiphany, my baby goes to grade 4. And they start learning about Native content. I know grade 4 is such a huge pivotal part in history and social studies. And they get a lot of stuff that are misinterpreted. And I'm like, what is happening here? There was like a mishmash of a Native person kind of representing all Natives called Native American. And it was like a mishmash outfit. And then there was like a pilgrim, and that's how they were learning. And I'm like, What?
Ugh.
Like, we're not talking tribes or nations or even like space. Where in United States is this? What are we talking about? And so I made a book called I Am Native that has Native families in their regalia and their outfits. And then on the opposite page, I have us doing that kind of modern thing. So on one side, I have like my son playing basketball. On the other side, he's hoop dancing. On the one side, one is doing beadwork, and the other side, they're painting with acrylic paint. And that's kind of how I kept self-publishing these things. But I've always been a book lover. I've always loved the mirror and the window concept of going out and seeing the world from the comfort of your very own home. And so Buffalo Dreamer, the book, is just like that. It's just as my kids grow older and they're learning about residential schools and they're learning about what it is, and then they find out that their grandfather went, their grandparents went, that they're called their great grandparents, they're called Japons, and they're like, what have I been missing? How did my, and then I went to a day school, and they're like, didn't this happen in like the 1800s? And I realize as they get older, my writing style gets older. And I'm like, okay, I need to start writing for these middle schoolers, young people who are trying to understand, where do they fit in with this history? What is happening? And how come we're not talking about it? And so that's what Buffalo Dreamer delves into, is as the slow progression as my children. I'm just following
Yes.
behind them, writing away, trying to help them interpret this world the best I can.
Man, I think that's so beautiful that your children are the ones. You are not the first person I've talked to about, kind of your children being this impetus for filling the voids that exist in arts, culture, literature. Like, there are so many things that are shockingly still missing. And I think as a parent myself, I'm finding that too, like through my kids' eyes. Like, I'm seeing how they're bringing the world in and realizing, like, wait a second, like, we need to pivot and adjust. And like, it's a lot more than I anticipated. I think of ourselves as, we're pretty modern parents, but there's a lot of stories that are missing. And so I guess my question for you would then be like, so what is the story of Buffalo Dreamer? And like, what story and what gap is that filling in that's kind of been missing, especially I think at the middle grades level? Tell us a little bit more about the story itself and how it's going to fit in.
So right now, all across Canada and across the northern parts of the United States, they're finding these things called unmarked graves at the residential schools. And these unmarked graves are basically hidden cemeteries where the children were buried and they didn't have any markers. And sometimes they never had like a proper burial ceremony anyway. So these were kind of very mysterious spaces. But our elders said, this happened to my friend. They passed away. They were buried over there by that tree. And everyone's like, well, there's no record of that. It looks like they got sick, or it looks like they ran away. And now there's this really cool technology where you can see where the ground has been displaced. And so our children are seeing these unmarked graves, and they're like, what does that even mean? Like, what is an unmarked grave, and what is a residential school, and why were there kids there, and were they my age? Did they look like me, and why were they put there in the first place? And so I'm like, okay, let's backpedal. Let's talk about how it began. And so we go with Summer, and she is just arriving on her usual summer vacation with her family. And they pass by the residential school and they see like bulldozers and TVs and reporters, and it's talk about unmarked graves. And so when she finally gets to the res, her and her cousin are like, we need to figure this out. What is unmarked graves? What is happening here? And it's the story of those two cousins understanding what it is, slowly talking to aunties and uncles, and slowly getting the courage to talk to their grandfather who actually had attended that exact school. And that is exactly the mirror of my life. My father went to residential school in the same school that we passed by on our way to the res. My children are trying to navigate how to respectfully talk about this really scary time. And so I help navigate kids through those discussions and the bravery because the one cousin is super brave and she's like kind of like a detective and she takes notes and she's really good. And the other one is like really cautious. And so as both of them try to uncover it, and at the same time, our main character, Summer, she's having these dreams of a young girl about her age running away from residential school. And she doesn't understand, but she feels everything that she feels. She feels the cold wind and she feels the itchy dress and she feels the hatred of the school and she doesn't understand why. And at the very end, we get to meet who that young girl is, and that is Buffalo Dreamer, and we get to hear her story.
Okay, so this is not a question I prepped you for, so please feel free to just tell me like to take a hike. But I'm so this is going to sound kind of strange, but I was thinking when I was thinking about talking to you, I was like, I really want to talk to Violet about like the cultural and the literary side of dreams, right? So like using the construct, right? This is called Buffalo Dreamer, right? The right, she's visited in these dreams. I've seen this in other right indigenous works. I'm thinking right now of Marrow Thieves. Marrow Thieves does a lot of work with dreams. What would you say like is right? Where did that come from for you? Was that more of like a cultural pull, or you wanted to use the literary side? Was it a combination? Why are dreams such an interesting and useful like archetype, right? Like that are being used in indigenous lit.
Okay, so let me tell you that the name Buffalo Dreamer is actually the name of our very good friend. He was Lakota, and his name was Tatanka Ihumble. And his spirit, he has passed away since then, but his spirit was always just so strong and powerful. And when you met him, you would feel like he's lived 1,000 years before this time. And it always felt really sacred to be in his presence and in his energy. And he was always so humble. He wasn't like arrogant, and he was always just so giving. And I kind of wanted to hold on to him more, and I wanted other people to learn about him more. His name was David Brush. And I just loved him so much in the small amount of time that I got to meet him. And I used his name, Buffalo Dreamer, Tatanka Ihambli, to set off this book because that's the energy that the woman gives in the book. And that's the energy that I felt. I felt him as I was writing. I felt that old spirit energy and that kind of like just proud to be a Native man in this modern time. And so that's where the name comes from, Buffalo Dreamer. But dreams themselves from a Native perspective, and I just have to speak from my own perspective,
Mm-hmm.
they're just something that should be valued and listened to. Every time my children have dreams, we try to interpret them. And it's not like a traditional thing or a spiritual thing. It's like that helps you understand what you're going through. And actually, just this morning, my little one had a bad dream. And
Oh,
we tried to help interpret it and we tried to help take it apart. And basically, he's terrified of spiders. And this one didn't have anything to do with spiders, but it's that anxious energy that he has. And so we now have a spray that has peppermint in it. And spiders like hate peppermint. And so
yeah.
that's our spider go away spray that we spray in our tiny house. And just knowing that that spray is out there and mama's here protecting you, because I see that anxiety kind of bubbling up as it just finished raining and the spiders are kind of going back out, but they all kind of came skittering in, knowing that that anxiety is there. So reading between the lines. So I would say just as a mom, as a Native woman, that dreams are just a really good interpretation of what you're going through and to kind of read in between the lines. Summer gets really cool dreams. I mean, hers are very
Yeah.
vivid and it is exactly the story. But to anyone else who is trying to understand, like, why are we dreaming here? To just understand those more, to say like, okay, this dream was not a bad dream, but it was my body saying, how can I relax more? What is bothering me? What is happening going forward? And then I know that other books have other dream sequences in them. And I just think that I'm like, I wish I could dream like that. I'm like, that is so cool to be able to get, hidden messages and stuff. So I just think that it's such a cool way to bring in this other character without really giving that character so much backstory.
I love it. And I think it's so fascinating because kind of the next question I wanted to get into with you is talking about kind of seeing how Buffalo Dreamer could appear in a curriculum, right? Like different ways that it could situate itself, right, in the conversations that we're having in our classrooms. And I was struck by this concept of dreams because I teach and I've taught mostly at the high school level. And one of the most commonly taught eras, right, or themes is the American dream. And I can't think of something that's more of an antithesis of what you just explained than the way that like traditionally the American dream has been oriented, right? It's been oriented through goal setting. It's about, progress, and it's about, kind of making one generation more successful than another generation. Whereas what I feel like you've just described is that dreams are a vehicle of staying in touch with the past and not necessarily about, and not that both things can't exist together, right? Two things can be true, but wouldn't that be so interesting to kind of like give students the chance to value dreams in more lenses than just one? So I guess that's kind of like my pre-chat to asking you more about, where do you kind of see the conversations about Buffalo Dreamer? Like, where do you see those coming up in a modern classroom? Where do you think that could happen?
I have to say, outside, now I would love to have this be a part of Native American Heritage Month in the month of November, but I would also love to see it branch out definitely into other facets. We could talk about it like even on Earth Day, because they celebrate, being connected to land and riding the horse and noticing, being aware of the birds and hearing picking sweetgrass and how we put down tobacco. That's our medicine to say thank you to the sweetgrass. So it could be connected to Earth Day when we talk about the environment and how we need to take care of the environment in our world going forward. It could be brought about in Arizona. On February 1st is the state birthday, and it could be celebrated there when we talk about, or any other state birthdays, when we talk about who are the original peoples of this land. And it doesn't have to be my book, but it could be other Indigenous authors. How do we celebrate Indigenous people from that area? Because oftentimes authors will talk about, or Native authors will talk about their traditional homelands. And if you are there in that traditional space and you get to see it through kind of a completely different lens on how you view the desert and the cactuses. I know that when I first moved to Arizona, coming from lush, beautiful prairies of northern Alberta, and I go to Arizona and it's the desert. And my husband just loves his home. And I'm like, why? I would walk out the front door and die. It's like, it's so deserty. I don't see anything. And he sees a traditional plant, and he sees a pharmacy, and he sees a cactus, and he knows that the water is closer to the surface there. He sees these berries, and he sees these medicines, and he could survive. And I'm like, I would eat that flower. And he's like, you would die. That's poison. That's actually not traditionally from here. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, and I'm gonna. So it's really cool to read these books and see the traditional homelands in a whole new light of beauty and reverence and acknowledgement. I know I talk about berry picking, I talk about sweetgrass picking, I talk about the horse. And so there's many different aspects to talk about your home, how we look at our home, how do we value our home, how do we say, like, this is where my roots are. And the connection that we have with family, if we were going to ever talk about family, it's not like mom, dad, and siblings. There's auntie that she goes with. There's her grandfather's relationship. There's the generational gap that's happening. How do we talk to each other? And so this book fits in many different ways. If we want to talk about family, just how we navigate. We actually don't have Summer's father most of the book because he's away. And is that a hindrance? Is the mom totally like stressed out, or is she just handling it? And what does that relationship look like? And being an older sibling, what does that relationship look like? And so looking at family dynamic. And I think that it's a really good way to say, okay, Summer is Cree and Summer is not in her city, but she's just like me. That's what I would do. That's how I would want to go with my uncle fishing, and how my little brother is kind of annoying. And, so it fits in different ways. I would love to see it scattered throughout the year instead of just Native American Heritage Month. But of course, it fits right in on that month too, though.
I also kind of thought about it being a beautiful, I think it would be a great anchor text for any teachers that are looking to teach coming of age.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that. Actually, yeah, that when I was writing it was inspired by my two daughters, and one was already 12 and the other one was 10. So one wanted to be like the older one, and the older one was just kind of figuring out their life right now. And I was just like the fly on the wall, watching it
Yeah.
all fold and seeing how they come into themselves. And yeah, definitely Summer comes across as really shy and quiet and doesn't want to, cause a ruckus. And as she goes through the summer and she kind of gets emboldened and braver. And by the end of the book, she's definitely this incredible person that's like, now I know now. And I mean, knowledge definitely gives you power and empowerment, and you can feel that empowered young person by the end of the book.
Oh yeah, because I'm thinking about like some of my other like favorite, young protagonists that are coming of age. Like I think of Xiomara from the poet X, Elizabeth Acevedo's book. I think about these like really introspective, but like also really like pushing and wrestling, trying to figure things out. I love that idea of coming of age coming from Summer. That would be really really cool. Okay, so then with that said, now we kind of bridge there. I would love to know what are some other like novel titles or other poems or authors you could see either fitting alongside Buffalo Dreamer. Like if we were to kind of like make a list of things, texts that would go alongside this story, what do you envision could be there?
Okay. There's so many. There's so many now, and I'm so
Yay.
grateful
Give
for
us
all
the
of them.
list. Give us
Yeah,
the
let me
list.
let me give you the list. Let me give you books and authors. Okay, one that was really profound and really hit me in the heart and in the gut is a book. It's called "I Am Not a Number," and it's by Dr. Jenny K. Dupois and Kathy Kaser. And "I Am Not a Number" is about the experience in residential school, which I don't get into. We're just Summer in my book is just a modern girl or a modern person today learning about it. And I specifically didn't talk about the what happened in the residential school for my auntie and my grandparents and people who are like, I can't read about that. I've been through it. I don't want to go through it again. And I want them to read it, and I want them to see how we see them as powerful community members and people who have overcome this. You're a survivor, you're a warrior. And so I didn't want them to relive it. But for those who have no idea what a residential school is, that is a really good book. I'm Not a Number. So that is a book that I read in like 20 minutes. It's a really good, quick book to read through. Another children's book is called When We Were Alone by David A. Robertson. It's a children's book, and it just speaks to residential school and when they finally had some time alone, because residential school was constantly on the clock, constantly working, constantly ticking boxes, being there. Another book that I really liked was called When I Was 8 by Christy Jordan Fenton and Margaret Pokiak Fenton. That one is pretty intense. It also has like it's the children's book to her novel called Fatty Legs. And Fatty Legs it's another one where it's an experience of residential school. So that one is really, 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 really good. And of course, in Canada, we have Phyllis Orange. She's the one that inspired Orange Shirt Day. Her book is called Orange Shirt Story. Her name is Phyllis Webstad. Her story is basically she was going to residential school and she was actually really excited, like your first day of kindergarten, and she got a beautiful sparkly orange shirt. And the first thing they do at residential schools is they cut your hair and they take your clothes and they put you all in a same, so everybody looks the same. And she was just really devastated by that. And I think that as parents and as young people, we know what we want to look like. We want to, be an individual on that first day of school and set it right and make friends and find our people. And they just strip that of it. And so Orange Shirt Day, that book, Orange Shirt Day story, it explains how Orange Shirt Day came to be and kind of puts us in that perspective. I forget other stories, but I mean, other authors. Tanya Talega is like, I love her. Michelle Good, I love her. Drew Hayden Taylor is like, since I was in college, I've been reading all of his books. So he's incredible. Eden Robinson, Richard Van Camp, Thomas King. Those are just some authors that are like the OGs of Indigenous lit. and their books just always inspire me. So any one of those books by those authors are going to be fantastic, whether they go with this book or not. If you just want to make a list of books to read for, like, I don't know, a summer reading or Native American Heritage Month or whatever it be.
Well, broadening our list of authors and our list of texts is so deep, we deeply care about that at the podcast because we know teachers are limited on time, right? Like even my own TBR list, I don't think there's a single book on my list of books that I want to read that like I researched myself, but all of them are recommendations from people that I know, care about, trust, or like have been following on TikTok for a very, 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 very long time. And like, I know their style, but I don't think I would have ever picked up most of what I've read had it not been for, right, a confidant's recommendation. So thank you for that list. That's an amazing list. And I'm really happy that you shared some children's lit with us because I think children's books are such an amazing supplement when we're thinking about our units and how much time we have to do a children's book with middle school takes a whole 20 minutes. And it's a great way to jump off, get a conversation started as a jumping off point into other things, whether that's research or reading something longer or whatever it might be. That's really wonderful. And I love this list. I'm so okay. Now we need to stop talking so I can go back to reading. So thank you very much. No. but I love those of you who are
honestly, I love having a stack of to be read books. It just makes me feel more comfortable knowing that anywhere I go, I'm like, I have a book to go. It's like when I stop and I finish my pile that I actually feel really anxious. It's like after you finish binging a show and you're like,
no good.
It's over. I'm like, no, I actually even start a second one before I finish my first one just to sample it, make sure it's worthy enough. If I need to like slow down my reading or speed up. I'm a book addict and I proudly accept that.
Oh, yeah, you're in very good company, by the way. So that's good. You can admit all of that to all of us, and we're right there with you. Okay, so for those teachers who are definitely, I know they're going to pick up your book. I'm so excited. This book was released in August. It is brand new, you guys. I think this is going to make a wonderful addition to your classroom library, to your curriculums. Violet, for the listeners who are about to start reading it, right? They're going to embark on this journey with Summer, with you. What is it that you're hoping that they will walk away from once this journey is over? We don't need to have spoilers, but like, what is the big takeaway you're hoping people are going to latch onto?
I'm really hoping that people will walk away with a deeper understanding of Indigenous history, empathy for the experience of residential school survivors, and the desire to learn more about change that is happening and how they can be agents of change. And that for the students, that it could foster curiosity, compassion, and a sense of social responsibility is my hope and prayer.
Oh my gosh. Well, we will get back to you and let you know. Maybe we'll have you back next, in a few months or so, and we'll see where everyone has gotten. So in the meantime, where can our listeners find you, follow you, get in touch with you? Do you do author visits, stuff like that? Like, how can our teachers get a hold of your work and you?
Take me anywhere. I love working with kids. That's actually what I do in my day job. I'm a traditional storyteller and I'm a traditional dancer. And as a family, we're a performing arts group. And my very favorite thing is to go to schools and to be in the classroom and to, first of all, say, hey, I'm Native. This is what we look like today. We are not stuck in history texts. And sometimes I wear parts of my regalia to show them that this is how we dress, and wear our traditional earrings or necklaces or chokers or skirts and modernize them. And so it really kind of wilds kids out when they realize that I don't live in a teepee and that I do live in a modern home. And I love to break that stereotype and let them know that this is where I am from and this is where my children's father is from. And this is why we're so different. Like, our tribes are so different. And I love showing that compare and contrast between our tribes. So follow me on Instagram, Violet Duncan, Facebook. My website is violetduncan.com. Take me home. take me to your classroom because I am dying to go. I would love to. I love connecting with our young people. I just think that they are really paving the way. And I just love where the future is going when I go into our classrooms and I see all these intelligent, empathetic, beautiful young people leading the way and saying, this is how we're going to change the world.
Well, I would urge our readers to take you up on that offer. Our readers, our listeners, and I guess our readers too. But I would urge them to take you up on that offer because there's nothing more powerful than putting not only is it like the cultural component of what you're saying, like I'm Native, this is what I look like, but like also I'm an author and this is a book and I'm a real person. Those are, both experiences are pretty foreign to most of our students. And I think that that's just when we find wonderful authors like you who are ready to be part of the classroom experience, like we should take advantage of that and go do it. And it's going to be those flashbulb, light bulb memories for children as they grow and they get older and they remember like, oh yeah, this author was real. And I met this author. Like those are so powerful for our kids. So I am so grateful for your time, Violet. Thank you for taking some time today to talk to us. And we hope to have you back soon. And we will absolutely catch up with you in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, listeners. I appreciate you. Kisagitin. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thanks again for listening to Brave New Teaching.
We'd love to keep the conversation going over on Instagram.
And while you're there, check out the links in our bio for the most up-to-date events going on in the Brave New Teaching community.
Thanks for being here and have a great week at school.